last time. I'm going to do it too. So I got like halfway through, I went, oh no, and I started recording it, which was not really helpful to just have half of it. So I'm glad, I was very grateful to have the second chance. I think this is it. If somebody else joins, we will certainly welcome them. I just thought we'd do introductions first and then have a short prayer and then get into it. I'm Ann Russ. I am a Presbyterian pastor. I'm not currently serving a church. I am living in New York City. As you may be able to tell by listening to me, I am not from New York City. I am originally from Arkansas. I have lived in a number of places, however, but I'm currently in New York City. I run an online faith community called Doubting Believer, and we work to welcome folks who have been hurt by the church or who think they don't like church or for whatever reason just need a little extra Jesus right now. And but I have been an ordained pastor for almost 20 years. I've served as a solo pastor for 16, 17 of those years. And I am my mental health training, a lot of it comes from my upbringing. I was raised by two mental health professionals. My mother was the director of our county mental health center when I was growing up. So I literally grew up with mental patients. My father was and for years and years was a professional counselor. We lived in a relatively small town. And so people didn't have boundaries. So people showed up at our house in crisis from time to time. That was not unusual. So I kind of grew up in an atmosphere where if something was wrong, you immediately started looking into emotional and spiritual problems rather than physical. And I still tend to do that. And so I know all of the reasons that we need to take care of ourselves. I know the signs that happen when we don't take care of ourselves. And I've been a pastor, so I know why we don't take care of ourselves. So hopefully today I can give you not so much completely change your minds about how you live your lives and how you do your ministry, but maybe give you some tools and some practices that you can adopt fairly easily that I have found make a really big difference and other people have found they make a really big difference. So I just love it if we could go around, we can do mutual invitation. I'll invite someone. And if you'll tell me your name and where you are and what your role is, and then if you'll invite someone else to do the same. So your name, let's do your name, where you are, what your role is, and a fun fact about yourself. I'll give you, my fun fact is that my mother was one of 11. So I have 33 first cousins. That is my fun fact. And I will call on Jenny.
Hi, I'm Jenny Whitford, serving at Worthington, and as children's director. I was in Michigan for about 15 years, but we're Spartans at our house, not Wolverines, so you get a pass. And I've been here for 5 years. My fun fact would be, I came in second place in an amateur bodybuilding show a long time ago.
Cool.
And I'll call on Pastor Justice.
I'm Justice Ofuswine. I'm a pastor of Ramsey Presbyterian Church in Columbus, Ohio. I have been here for the past 5 years. I moved from Ghana in West Africa. I have a lot of fun, but the most interesting one is with my little girl, who came to me 3 days ago and told me that, you know that I'm 10 years old now, so I need my cell phone. I need my personal privacy in my room. Don't come there unless you are invited. And it was like, okay, go ahead because you are the queen of this house. Scott.
Thanks, Justice. Good to see you. I'm Scott Schnapp. I'm the pastor of Lee Street Presbyterian Church, number 1. I'm the pastor of St. Paul's Lutheran Church in Prospect, number 2. I'm an associate chaplain for Ohio Health at Marion General Hospital, number 3. I know nothing about self-care.
I was going to say, you need this workshop.
I need more than a workshop, ma'am. So I'm a busy guy, but I still have time to go to workshops, so that's good. There's some hope for me yet. Fun fact about me: one of my best friends is a relation to both Jimmy Kimmel and is also related to Ben Stein. We remember from Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Bueller. So
Nice.
that's my fun fact. Katie, hi.
I'm Katie Kinnison. Right now, I'm serving as a transitional pastor for Washington Courthouse, while I also look for a more permanent calling as probably a solo pastor. And when I was growing up, I wanted to be an English teacher and a paleontologist. And there are dinosaurs all over my house. There were 20 on the Christmas tree, and that garland over there is dinosaurs.
It is, yes. Nice.
Yes, it is. Mhm. So, Patricia, what have you got? Hi.
Hi. I am Patty Motes. I'm not as currently serving a church right now, formerly pastor of the Covenant Parish and then Reynoldsburg Unity Church. I guess a fun fact about me, I don't know, I like peanut butter and pickle sandwiches.
Okay.
Let's go to Bob Gustafson.
Hi, I'm Bob Gustafson. I'm a commissioned ruling elder, pastor at West Berlin Presbyterian Church in Southern Delaware County, and I'm also a temporary treasurer of the presbytery. So I got a few things going in my quote retirement years here. Fun fact about me is I fly 4 Big Ten flags on a football weekend for places I've been a student or faculty member. And I think we've gotten everybody then, right?
I think we got one more. I don't think we haven't heard from Jeannie.
Yeah, I'm Jeannie Harsh. I've been on presbytery staff in about 8 different positions over the last 21 years. And a fun fact for me, before I went to seminary, I was a research chemist for the Forest Service.
Wow. Y'all bring with lots of varied backgrounds with you here.
So I'll call on you, Ann.
Well, I'm glad that you, I think that Scott hit upon it by just saying the fact that you took the time to come to a workshop about self-care says a lot, that you're willing to even take, an hour out of your time to even talk about this, says you're thinking about it and it's a priority. So kudos to you for even getting this far. So that's really, I hope that you will find some of these things helpful. I'm going to tell you before we start, I'm probably not going to tell you anything you don't already know. However, everything I'm going to tell you are things that you really need to be reminded of and probably aren't doing. So sometimes, and I know that's what we do as pastors and as educators too, we often tell stories that people have already heard, but they need to hear them again and again and again. And I think self-care is a lot like that. So if you would, let's start. We're going to have kind of an opening prayer and meditation. And wherever you are, if you can get so that both of your feet are planted firmly on the ground. And and if you can put your hands somewhere on your lap or on the table or wherever, just so that they're open. Just feet firmly planted on the ground and hands open. And let's pray. Gracious God, we give you thanks for this opportunity to come together and talk about how we can better equip ourselves to be your people, to be the people who bring your words and your love to others. We come before you with our feet firmly planted on the ground and ourselves firmly rooted in your word. Help us to remember who we are and whose we are. We come with open hands. We come open to new ideas and new ways of being. and new understandings every time we turn to your word, every time we come to you in prayer. We are so grateful when new things are revealed, when new things are understood, and when we are able to share those things with others. God, we can feel our hearts beating, and we come to you with open hearts, knowing that you are at the center of our being, that you love us more than we could ever imagine. And it is because you love us that we are able to love others, and particularly those who are so often very hard to love. God, you have given us brains and intellect and minds. You have given us ears that can hear and eyes to see. We are so very grateful for the chance to see the things you have gifted us with, to listen to people who so need to be heard, and to take all of those things in and use our hearts and our minds to serve you, to serve others, and to be the people you have called us to be. God, we give you thanks for this weird and wondrous calling, and we ask that you would be with us as we continue to care for ourselves so that we can care for your people. We pray all these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. Okay, I am going to share my screen and we're going to see how this goes. All right, let's see. Can everybody see this? Pretty good? Okay. So I kind of like to call it soul care. I find that self-care often brings to mind pedicures and massages, which are not bad things at all. I'm totally supportive and affirming of pedicures and massages, but I think self-care has to go deeper than that. And often self-care even goes even less deep than that. People will talk about retail therapy or binge watching Netflix for the weekend. Also, not necessarily bad things, but those are often just Band-Aids. We all need a break sometime, and we just need to take a moment. But soul care is deeper than just escaping for a moment. The way to practice really good self-care is to really care for our souls and not just practice escapism, which is what I think often self-care has devolved into. And again, I think there is a place for all of that. There are times when we just need to back out of the world and lose ourselves in a season of whatever, or just escape into whatever kind of fun activity we like to engage in when we need to take a break from real life. But for lasting care, for lasting sustainability, for those of us who are clergy, Christian educators who work in the ministry, it's got to be something more than that. And really the first thing is the realization that we have to do this, that if we want to be the people God calls us to be, we have to take care of ourselves. We cannot operate on fumes. And I know this year, it has probably been the hardest year that anyone has ever been in ministry, at least in my lifetime. I'm sure you could go back further, but in my lifetime, I can't think of another year where it was harder to be in ministry. And I know that because of everything that is going on with the people you care for, the people you lead, everyone I know in the ministry is working even harder. I often tell colleagues that it is not your job to deliver people from the horrors of the pandemic or deliver people from our political reality. It is your job to share the good news of the gospel. But of course, that's what we want to do. We want to make everybody's lives better. We want to make everything okay. We want to make church feel like it's always felt, even though it's completely different. So you can nod. Have you all worked harder this year than you've ever worked before? Most of my church people who are in ministry have. So I want to teach you this mantra, and I'm going to say it, and then I'm going to ask you all to say it with me, very Mr. Rogers style. And it is, I can't be who I'm called to be if I don't take care of who I am. So let's all say that together. I can't be who I'm called to be. Are we saying it with me? Y'all are on mute, so I can't hear you. Okay, let's try again. I can't be who I'm called to be if I don't take care of who I am. Okay, I want y'all to write that down. I'm going to be sharing this with the Presbyterian. I think they're going to put it up on the website later. I might be able to email it to you. But I want you all to adopt this mantra. It is so true because you can't. And if you are serious about shepherding your flock, this is something you absolutely have to take seriously. It's taking care of who you are so that you can be the pastor, the educator, the elder God is calling you to be. That's just true. So what I want to do, and it would take longer than we have here today to talk to you about the importance of saying no to people and how to say no and all that. So we're going to, like I said, I'm going to try to share some tools. If you have questions or thoughts, feel free to interrupt me, and we'll certainly have some time for questions afterwards. But here are the 3 warning signs that I think we should all pay attention to. And these are the signs that we are not taking good care of ourselves. And when these signs come up, we should pay attention to them. One is physical symptoms, headaches, not sleeping well, stomach problems, unexplained pains. Now, those are all things that can come with regular life, with the pandemic, with aging. But whenever you are experiencing either new pains or physical symptoms or something that is chronic, that is just not going away, stop and think and consider, am I taking good care of myself? Or what has been happening that I'm not taking good care of myself? Recently, on this past Monday, my husband's blood pressure went sky high. And he's like, why is my blood pressure so high? I wonder what's happening. And I said, are you kidding me? I said, first of all, you've been apoplectic since last Wednesday about what's going on in our country. And you've had 3 work emergencies in the past 48 hours. I said, how would your blood pressure not be up? So I think when we have physical symptoms, those should be a warning signs. Hey, I may not be taking good care of myself. Like I said, I grew up with mental health professionals. First sign of problems, what's wrong with our heads and our hearts, not what's wrong with our doctors for our last resort. The second warning sign is mental distractedness. Now, depending on who you are, you know what your normal level is. I myself am a very distracted person. I am very scattered. I am famous in many parts for not being able to keep up with my keys. But I know when I am becoming more distracted, more clumsy, less able to focus than usual. So when you start experiencing that, whatever your normal level of distractedness is, when that starts to increase, stop and think, am I taking care of myself? And then the third one, and this is really important, is when you start to realize that there is a lack of joy in your life. Now, this is different than depression. And I know a lot of people struggle with this, and especially more people have struggled during the pandemic. But the difference between a lack of joy and depression, and this is a very simplistic delineation, and I realize that, but often a big sign of depression is even when you should be happy or feel glad, you just don't. that can be, that's a big sign that you are suffering from depression. But a lack of joy is that you just aren't doing anything that makes you happy or brings you joy. That you are not engaging in the activities, interacting with the people, doing the things that bring you joy. And when you realize there is a lack of joy in your life, you should treat that as seriously as you would the signs of a heart attack. Because we have to have some joy in our lives, particularly right now. So one of the things, and I'm going to send a little worksheet to the Presbytery for them to put up, is take a minute, if you will, if you have paper, write it down. If not, you can think it in your head. Write down 10 things that you do or engage in that bring you joy. Just stream of consciousness, 10 things. And as you start to look at your 10 things or think about your 10 things, nobody has to answer this out loud. Have you engaged in those things recently? And if you haven't, that is a big warning sign that you are not taking good care of yourself. If you are not engaging in the things that bring you joy, then you are not taking good care of yourself. Oh, I neglected to say, nobody who works in ministry, when you write down the things that bring you joy, helping people is not one of the ones that you can put down. Helping others, and I'm sure it does bring you joy, or you would not be doing what you are doing. But when you are in a helping profession, that is part of your job. And even as you enjoy it, it also takes something out of you. So helping others cannot be on your list of things that bring you joy, even though they do. So this is a great list to have. And like I said, I'm going to send a worksheet to the Presbytery that actually has slots for more. And I think it is just a great thing to have up in your office or wherever you work at home, and just refer to it. Look at it every day. When was the last time I did any of these things that bring me joy? And then also, if you have it in front of you, you can add stuff. You can do something that brought you great joy that day. And you're like, oh, this isn't on the list. Let me add this. This is something that was really joyful for me. So 3 warning signs: physical symptoms, your mental state, your distractedness, maybe your irritability, and a lack of joy. Those are things that should make you say, hey, I need to be doing something different. So if we can pay attention to those, I'm going to give you 5 practices that you can adopt. Some of them are probably things you already do. I bet that all of you are doing at least one of these, but I will promise you, I'll give you a money back guarantee that if you do these things on a regular basis, they will make a huge difference. If you do one of these things that is new to you, it will change you for the better. If you take on all 5, you will be positively transformed. So I give you this guarantee. So here they are. And they have to do with your cell phone, the amount of water you take in, the amount of time you move every day, time for silence, and a bedtime ritual. Very simple things. None of them take a long time at all. So I'm going to give you a little more info. And this first one If you don't listen to anything I say tonight and you don't do anything else, do this one thing. This is the one thing you need to do. And that is, do not let your phone be the first thing you look at in the morning, or your computer if you're a get up and go to the computer. Do not let your phone or your computer be the first thing you look at in the morning. Give yourself at least 30 minutes when you wake up before you turn on your phone. Because what that does, oh, how many of you do? How many, and I'm was really big at this. I was a big first time look at my phone person, first thing. But what that does is hijacks your whole day. When you start the day looking at your phone or scrolling through your emails on your computer, you start your day with other people's agendas, other people's information, other people's opinion, rather than starting it with your own priorities. So this is the one thing that people have told me has made the biggest difference for people who were, let's check our phone first thing. And some of them have been so addicted, they couldn't do the 30 minutes. Like they had to work up to it. Like, okay, the first day I did for 5 and literally had to work up to 30 minutes before they looked at their computer, or their phone. And it completely changes the tone of your day. So no phone, that's the first thing of the 5, 30 minutes before you look at a screen. Then the second one, and we all have a friend who thinks that everything that is wrong could just be solved if you would hydrate and drink more water. Everybody has that friend. I am that friend. But there is real reason behind this, and here is why it is so important right now. So here's what happens when we get even just a little bit dehydrated, not even like terribly thirsty, a little bit dehydrated. It affects our short-term memory. It impairs our cognitive skills. It increases fatigue, anger, and confusion. And it decreases our energy, endurance, and motivation. Do you know what else makes all of these things happen? Anybody else know what else makes all these things happen? Living through a pandemic. These are all things that psychologists and physicians have shown are happening to people as we live through this pandemic. And the isolation and the stress, it is causing all of these things. So if we are also dehydrated, we are doubling down on the effects of living through this pandemic. So I know we all know it's important to drink water, and we can all nod our heads and say yes, yes, yes. But really, more than ever, drinking enough water so that we are not dehydrated. And if you're anything like every other person in ministry, I know you already drink way too much coffee. So then it even becomes harder to drink more water and stay hydrated. So no phone for 30 minutes, drink plenty of water. And then the other one is get moving. How many of you are working from home? Are y'all working from home? I am so sedentary now. When I was at a church, my last church that I served was a big rambling historic church, and I was running all over the church every day to get different things. I was getting into my car. I was having to park at hospitals and find my way to hospitals, and all of that has gone away now for a lot of people. And we are so sedentary, and we do know the effects of a sedentary life. And so there has been a lot of research done on regular moving, that even though people may have a very set workout or fitness program that they do 3 days a week, that actually moving, making sure we move 30 minutes a day, every day, is really key to our well-being and health. And it doesn't have to be a super sweaty, let's go hardcore workout. It can be any of these things I've listed and more. I
just had a brilliant idea. I can do my workout for 30 minutes and not look at my phone, and I can get 2 of these done.
Yes. And that's what some people do. They use that first 30 minutes so that they don't look at their phone, and they do exercise or meditation time. And then their phone is like their reward. So
If we drink water and coffee, we'll have to move more because we'll be constantly in the bathroom.
there you go. See, all of these things work together. They all work together. And again, none of these take a lot of, putting down your phone actually gives you back time. Drinking water, that doesn't take any more of your time. The moving, to be intentional about 30 minutes a day to feel better, that really pays off. And so then practicing silence. We have so much noise coming to us every day. There's so much noise, especially right now, that to just take some time to practice silence. And I do have a story about this that illustrates the point. One of my favorite classes in seminary was a class called The Transformative Power of Ritual. And we had some practices that we had to adopt as part of that class. That was part of our classwork. And one of them was that we had to practice 20 minutes of silence a day. Realizing that that is something you have to work up to, that the first 20 minutes, your mind's going to wander, but we were working towards spending that 20 minutes of working to be in silence and then getting there so that we were actually silent, brain cleared for 20 minutes. So there was a woman in my class who was a second career person, and she was working full time. She had 2 teenagers at home, and she had decided it was time to go to seminary. And so after the assignments came out she came back to the next class, and she was so distressed. She was also a perfectionist. What a surprise. And she told the professor, I can't do this. I don't have 20 minutes in my day. I can't get up any earlier than I'm already getting up. My office doesn't have a door on it, blah, 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 blah. And so Ellen was the professor. She goes, okay. That's cool. 10 minutes. Find 10 minutes a day that you can be quiet. The woman's like, okay. She comes back to the next class. I do not have 10 minutes. I don't have 10 minutes. There's no way. And of course, she's being brutally honest about this instead of just acting like she's doing it. She's not gonna lie about it. So Ellen said, okay, you know what? 5 minutes. 5 minutes a day. Try that. Sure enough, the woman, I do not have 5 minutes to be quiet in my life. And the teacher goes, do you have headaches? And the woman goes, yeah, I have really bad migraine headaches. Do you have digestion issues? Yes, I take an antacid every day. Do you sleep well? No, I sleep terribly. And the professor said, if you don't do something right now and find some time to quiet your brain and quiet your mind, you are going to crash and burn. She said, go home and find the 5 minutes. And this professor was this very gentle woman. She and her husband kind of lived like the Benedictine lifestyle with the cycle of like prayer and work and rest. And she's a very gentle person. She goes, you go home and you find that 5 minutes. So this was a Thursday. It was a Tuesday, Thursday class. And the woman comes like floating into class on Tuesday. She goes, oh my gosh. And she explained how she had carved out these 5 minutes. She goes, that's so wonderful. 5 minutes of just nothing. She said, I feel so good. And the teacher could not have done it, but I almost feel like this woman was a plant in the class, because the whole class watched her over the course of the semester get better and happier and calmer. And by the end of the semester, she was finding 30 minutes a day where she could be quiet and silent. And we literally watched the transformative power of ritual, the name of the course, happen in this woman. Professor swears she did not set that up, but I still have my doubts. So if you want to know, is 5 minutes enough? The answer is absolutely. Scientists, neurologists have studied this. And after just 5 minutes of silence, of shutting off all the noise, of shutting off our brains for 5 minutes, our brains recharge and revive, and the connections are stronger. That's amazing, y'all. Just 5 minutes. Now, for most of us, if this is not something you already do, it is really hard to turn off your brain for 5 minutes. And that is something you have to practice. You have to start and say, you know what, I'm just going to set my timer for 5 minutes and I'm going to try to quiet my brain. And the chances are you won't be able to quiet your brain for 5 minutes, but you might for 30 seconds. And then the next time you try it again, it is something you have to practice. But 5 minutes makes a difference in the way our brains function, and for the better. And if you're anything like me right now, you need all the help with brain function you can possibly get. And I will tell you that I can totally tell the difference in days that I let this go by. I mean, we all have days when stuff happens and we aren't intentional about the things we ought to be. I can tell when I get up the next day, if the day before I have not taken that 5 minutes. It's very obvious. So 5 minutes, that's it. And of course, many people are like the woman in my class. The 5 minutes is so helpful that people want to do more. They want to make time for more in our very loud, noisy world. So do whatever you have to do, but find that 5 minutes. And the last thing is a bedtime ritual. This is another thing that has come up in the pandemic, is sleep problems. I have started having, I started in the pandemic for the first time since college, having bad dreams. I haven't had bad dreams since my early 20s. And since the pandemic started, I've had bad dreams. But this is one, and I know that a lot of people are having trouble sleeping. And having a ritual, again, the power of ritual, something that you do every night right before you go to sleep. And it doesn't have to be complicated. It can be something simple, but it has to be something you do right before you get in bed, turn out the lights, and close your eyes. Because what this does is it signals to your brain, hey, it's time to go to sleep. And again, this is not one of those things that you do once and it makes all the difference. It's something that as you start to do it every night, then it does signal to your brain, and it makes a huge difference in your ability to sleep well or to go to sleep. And so it can be something really simple. Washing your face and brushing your teeth. Most of us do that before we go to bed. I usually don't do it right before I go to bed. It can be something as lighting a candle and walking around the dining room table and howling at the moon. It doesn't have to be that complicated or dramatic, but if you're a dramatic person, I have a daughter who is a musical theater major. We have a lot of drama in our house. That can work for you. But just the same thing every night and not involve a screen. Playing video games on your phone is not a good bedtime ritual. Some people like to pray. I do not. Mind tends to wander and I tend to drift off to sleep, which is great for sleep, but not so great for a prayer life. So that is not what I do right before I go to sleep. I have a friend who has a very nice little tea ritual. She has a cup of decaf tea in a favorite chair. And she does that every night right before she goes to bed. She has a little ritual of how she fixes her tea. She sits in her chair, drinks her tea, and goes to bed. And that signals to her body, to her mind, it's time to go to sleep. So it can be anything, as long as it's something you do right before you go to sleep. And it makes a huge difference in the way that you're able to sleep and in the quality of rest that you get. Ritual is very, very powerful. So I'm going to go back to, there we go, hold on. All right, we can see this screen, that's fine. So that's what the phone, the water, the moving, the silence, and the bedtime ritual. If there's any of these that you don't already do, I would really encourage you to adopt one or more of them. And I offer these. I'm going to stop sharing the screen right now. I offer these as very concrete things that we can do, because I think as clergy, we often talk about more esoteric things that may be hard to put into place, like saying no to more things, which we can always intend to do. But as you all know, stuff comes up that we can't say no to, or boundaries that we set, and they're very well intentioned and they're very wise, but then something comes up and we have to shift those boundaries for whatever reason. So those are things that are always moving, that always have to be up to our discretion, that we're always navigating in terms of self-care. And those are important. Learning to say no, setting boundaries, managing expectations. Those are ever shifting, ever changing things that we have to navigate. These practices are not on a daily basis that help us take care of ourselves so that we are better equipped to take others. So that's why I like to talk about these very concrete things, because these are up to us, and it does not bring into what other people may not be doing, may or may not be pushing up against us. These are all things that are under our control as to what we choose to do. And they make a big difference in the way we feel. They make a big difference in our moods. It is just, they're all good ways to practice care of self, and they are not dependent or affected by the actions and attitudes of others. So that's also kind of nice to have when you are in ministry, is some things that you can actually control and are not so constantly shifting and changing. So do any of these resonate with any of you? Are there any of these that you aren't doing that you think, that might be something I could do? Yes, no, we don't know.
Yeah, no, I think, I think they're, like what you said, they're pretty simple, and they're things we can be in charge of. When you were talking about bedtime rituals, I was thinking about, when we put our kids or our grandkids or our nieces or nephews to bed, what do we do? There's usually probably some kind of ritual. Get a drink of water, read a Bible story, or read a book, maybe pray, rub a back, I remember my kids were little, those things that we did. And so that really, that sparked me right away, that probably didn't even realize helping my kids go to sleep and get good rest by doing that.
Yeah, that's not a, does anybody have a silence practice? Yeah. What do you do, Katie? If you don't mind sharing.
Oh, sure. I do centering prayer. So if I'm home, I have different ways that I do it. When I'm out and about, I actually have some rocks that I put in my bag that I hold in my hands to kind of like be a consistent, like a place, like I'm carrying my place with me, that kind of grounds me. But at home, there's a chair that I do, and I'll do 20 minutes a day. If I have to get one in if I'm going to be my full self, ideally two. And I was thinking that because it's been hard for me to do two lately. And so I've got this part of my brain that's kind of nagging me about it. But I could do my one and then pull off 5 minutes here and there and just, do it that way. But that I started out doing the pretty strict Thomas Keating centering prayer method, and sort of modified it for myself. Mm-hmm. For me, to get to that sort of like blank space you were talking about, if I breathe into my heart, if I kind of start focused that way, which technically in centering prayer, you're not supposed to do anything with that much intent. If I do that, I get grounded in my body, and then I can do the letting go and being empty. But I've got to ground in my body first, get back in there.
And I think whatever works for Yeah. For me, I have a journal, my undergraduate degree is in journalism. And so my thing is I picture a blank page, literally a white piece of paper. And as stuff comes in that I'm thinking about, I actually see the words on the page and I'll just kind of like brush them off. And in fact, if anybody walks in on me doing that, they might just see me like, and I don't do that so much anymore because the words don't, now that but when I first started, that was my, to try to stay, and I still picture the blank piece of paper. That's otherwise, and I think pastors and clergy and church people also have problems because when we go to be silent, we think of all the people we really should be praying for. and prayer, especially intercessory prayer and even prayer for ourselves, is a very different thing than a time of silence. That's a whole different brain thing than just being silent. So
And the other thing, I think we also tend to judge ourselves on our prayer, right? A lot of us. So that if we can't be silent, we think we've done something wrong. And a nice tip in the Keating is things can come in your brain, but you either do what you do or you just let them float by. The danger is when you jump on the boat and now you're planning dinner, right? If you can just let them go, then you just gently get out of the boat and you're back, you know?
Well, I thought it was really the story I told about my seminary classmate. That was over 20 years ago when that 5 minutes made such a difference. And it's only been recently when I've been researching it to really find out, okay, how much that I found out that neurologists and neuroscientists say, yeah, 5 minutes. Like that will actually change the way your brain works. Just 5 minutes of silence. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that really did like shift just that 5 minutes.
And it actually changes your neural network. You know, we've got a bunch of nerves in our heart too. It makes entrainment between these things. So when something happens, like comes at you, instead of resisting it and having it go to your lizard brain, you know, where you just either freeze, flee, faint, or fight, then when you do this practice, you're more receptive to things. You just sort of allow them, and then it goes to your neocortex, and you can actually choose how to respond. So it's that when you practice the thing, it actually shifts, transforms you.
Yeah. So all of these 5 things, if there's any of these 5 things you aren't already doing regularly, I really encourage you to start at least one of them. And of course, the key to this, like it is to everything that is a practice, is just the intentionality and the discipline of it, to do it every day. And that is what makes a difference, is any one of these things. If we do it daily, that's when it really becomes transformative. That's when it helps us care for ourselves the most. And if you will think about, as you do these things, and I'm sure some of them you already do, but as you do these things, think of it as being part of your ministry, because it is. Think of your disciplines that you are doing for your own self-care as being part of what you do to care for your flock, to care for your people, because that is what you are doing. You are equipping yourself so that you can be the best pastor, the best educator, the best youth leader that God is calling you to be. So that's why I like to call it soul care rather than self-care, because sometimes we start to think, even though we know it's not true, we start to think of self-care as being somewhat selfish. And it is exactly the opposite of that. So if we think about soul care rather than self-care, we know that when we are engaging in that, that is part of our ministry to the people we are called to serve. It really is. And I think that is so, so important to remember, because I think we, as people called to ministry, are much more likely to do something that's going to help other people than we are to do something that's going to help us. So when you practice soul care, you are actually caring for the people that you are called to serve. And I think we are much more likely to be disciplined in our soul care when we approach it that way. And that is real, and that is true, and that is not jargon, because that really is what you're doing. remember the mantra. I can't be who I'm called to be unless I take care of who I am. So does anybody have any questions? Are you buying this at all? Because I've talked to people who have not bought any, they're like, nah. So I hope you bought into at least a little of this. I will tell you that those people who haven't been doing any of these things and have started doing one or two, report back really positive changes in their lives. And for some people, a real surprise and even a bit of stunnedness that such a small shift can make such a big difference. And I think that's important too, is that we don't have to make, sometimes I think when we are so stressed and life gets so hard, we think I have to make this dramatic,
Right.
I have to fruit basket turn over my life and start all over again. And maybe sometimes that is true, but often it is these small shifts that can make a huge, huge difference.
Mhm.
So I think we're still within time. If anybody has any questions or, yeah. Any thoughts?
Well, I was thinking, so there's 5 things. I know there's 6 weeks in Lent, but then you get into Holy Week and that's just throws everything off. But I was thinking about that it could be a good self-practice, you know, for myself to, I don't know if I could do all 5, but I could do one of these a week and even like build up. I don't know about that 30 minutes in the morning, but I have to read what Heather Cox Richardson wrote the night before. But I should probably wait to read her because that probably does. You're absolutely right. It sets my day off. Yeah, so that's I was kind of thinking about Lenten practices that could maybe.
Well, and it could be something that you do with your church too. You know, almost everybody will find that one of these or one or two is more helpful than others. And I think one of the keys also to church staff practicing good self-care is to get that, to model it for the congregation and get the congregation understanding why that is important as well. And so in Lent, that might be a thing to do with your congregation, is the first week of Lent, everybody agrees that their discipline is going to be not looking at their phone for 30 minutes and everybody does it together. And then the next week it's everybody makes sure they get plenty of water. And then at the end of Lent, people can think, now, which one of those did I feel like really, which was the hardest, which might be the one that you need to do the most, or which did I feel like changed me the most? And if you can get your congregation in on paying attention to their soul care, then they're much more likely to understand that you too practice such things. So
a centering prayer group works really well on Zoom.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it does.
I was doing that with my old church 3 times a day, and I had no choice but to show up for centering prayer because I was meeting these other people on Zoom. It really helped my own practice.
Right. So I hope that you guys will take on at least one of these, or maybe all 5. Again, none of them really take up much time. And in fact, the phone thing gives you back some time. And I really think they all give you back some time because you will feel better. Your mind will be clearer. You will be more focused. You'll be better able to do the things you're called to do. So whatever time you give to these things, you will definitely reap the benefits and it will be returned to you. So anyway, if nobody has any more questions, why don't we close in prayer? Let's pray. Gracious God, thank you for this time together. I give you thanks that all of these folks decided that taking care of themselves so that they can continue to minister to your people is important. I ask that you be with them and guide them, especially in this really difficult time in ministry. Give them strength and patience and courage so that their love for you is transmitted to those around them. And may their lights help illumine the lives of others and help them to continue to bring the good news to a world that is just desperate for it. And I ask all of these things in the name of your Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. So just a little
Right.
for Anne. Anne's also leading a social media workshop stuff right now too. I saw that this afternoon. So if you want to learn how to do
Oh,
a more social,
yeah. Yeah, if you go to Doubting Believer on Facebook, I have a Facebook group that's called social media, what is it called? Social media outreach and evangelism for churches, something like that. But if you go to Doubting Believer social media, you'll find it. And I just do, and I also have a mailing list that you can sign up for on the group. And I am a certified Facebook social media marketer, and I am the only one in the program who went through the program so that I could tell people about Jesus. So I have a little Facebook group to help other people do that. I do think that social media is our best, it is one of our best forums for evangelism right now. And I think we should be using it widely and well. I know social media gets a bad rap, and for good reason, but I think it's also a great tool for evangelism. So you can check, it's Doubting Believer on Facebook, and then there's a social media group attached to that. So yeah. Yep, I like to tell people about Jesus on the computer, whether they want to hear it or not.
That's right. Well, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your time. I really appreciate it. When we bounce out of the small group, you'll be bounced to the large group, and you can be done. Or we didn't have anything planned for the end because we figured every workshop might end a little early or a little late, and so you are free to be done, but you are also welcome to come back into the large group if you want to see what we're doing. But probably Kathy and I will just be doing some debriefing. So get ready for bed and drink some water.
All right. Yeah, do a nice ritual before you go to bed tonight.
Thank you.
Good night.